I'm Christopher Cruz in Washington. 2 of the 4 Americans who were kidnapped in Mexico Friday have died. The other 2 are in a hospital in Brownsville, Texas, and CBS's Omar Villafranca is there.
Mexican authorities found Latavia McGee and Eric Williams at a stash house outside the city of Matamoros after gunmen moved them to multiple locations to avoid capture. It was the end of a road trip for cosmetic surgery. McGee, Williams, along with their close friends Shahid Woodard and Zindell Brown, traveled last week from South Carolina to Matamoros so McGee could have cosmetic surgery.
State Department is pulling an agent that specializes in responding to escalated cartel activity.
This is not my department.
FBI!
You want to be a part of this?
Do we get an opportunity of the men responsible for today?
The men who are really responsible for today.
Ever been to Juarez before?
We're going to El Paso, right? You're not American. Where do you work for now?
Well, I go where I'm sent.
Every day across that border, people are killed with his blessing. To find them would be like discovering a vaccine.
Nothing will make sense to your American ears.
But in the end,
You will understand.
Spotter vehicle, left lane.
Spotter vehicle, 9 o'clock.
Get your weapon out.
I'm not a soldier. This is not what I do.
Juarez is what happens when they dig in. This is it.
Gotta be careful around these people. CIA is not supposed to work this side of the fence.
Just want to know what I'm getting into.
They will not survive here.
You use me as bait. Freeze!
You saw things you shouldn't have seen.
He works for the competition.
Providing a measure of order that we could control.
I'm gonna tell everyone what you did.
That would be a major mistake.
And the frightening thing is, movie fiction is actually less violent than the real thing.
hey, vamos.
trabajas?
Para mi papá Chilo y mi jefe Eddie 90.
¿De dónde eres?
Soy de Sinaloa.
¿A qué te dedicas?
Soy sicario.
¿Cuántas veces han peleado Julio Alfa en Chamic?
Nunca, siempre ha corrido junto con Chumish. Nos dejan solos y ahorita llevamos meses que no nos pagan.
Tróneselo.
¡Rájalo macizo, mijo, la verga!
Están unos cabrones aquí en el puro malecón. Mira. A la verga. A tu madre, parando tráfico, tirándole a todos.
ver, ¿con quién trabajan? Con Julio Alfa. Julio Alfa. De Sinaloa. ¿Con quién? Chumix.
Pues puta madre.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Chilling images tonight appear to show 4 Americans kidnapped at gunpoint moments after crossing from Texas into Mexico on Friday. Tonight, the FBI asking for the public's help, offering a $50,000 reward to help locate the Americans who were attacked by armed men after crossing from Brownsville, Texas into Matamoros, riding in a minivan bearing North Carolina plates. One woman seen being dragged into a pickup truck. A U.S. official tells NBC News the attack may have been a case of mistaken identity. Authorities say a Mexican citizen was killed during the confrontation. Gabe Gutierrez reports it happened in an area that has become increasingly dangerous.
These photos, shared widely on social media, appear to show the kidnapping's aftermath. The FBI says the 4 Americans entered Matamoros, Mexico Friday in a white minivan with North Carolina license plates before armed gunmen opened fire and abducted them. A law enforcement official with knowledge of the matter tells NBC News this video depicts part of the kidnapping, appearing to show one woman walking on her own, forced into a white pickup truck. Armed men with bulletproof vests are then seen dragging other people into the vehicle.
We are closely following the assault and kidnapping of 4 U.S. citizens in Matamoros, Mexico. These sorts of attacks are unacceptable.
Authorities say a Mexican citizen was killed during the incident. A law enforcement official tells NBC News the Americans did not cross the border for any criminal purpose, and that this appears to be a case of mistaken identity. Today, Mexico's president said they'd entered the country to buy medicine, although U.S. officials have not confirmed that. The Mexican government We visited Matamoros to report on migrant tent camps for years, but violence there has escalated. The city of about 500,000 people just across the border from Brownsville, Texas, is home to warring factions of the Gulf Drug Cartel. The shootouts on Friday prompted the U.S. consulate to issue another security alert. Tonight, the FBI is offering a $50,000 reward for the safe return of the Americans.
And Gabe is with me now. Do we know anything about the identities of the Americans?
Well, Lester, the FBI has not confirmed any details, but I just spoke with a family member of one of those abducted, and she says the group was from South Carolina but had a rental car with North Carolina plates. She says the group crossed the border for a medical procedure. A law enforcement source with knowledge of the matter tells NBC News it was cosmetic surgery, and the family is pleading for their safe return tonight, Lester.
Gabe Gutierrez, thank you.
We begin our report with the kidnapping of 4 Americans in Mexico. 2 of them are safely back on U.S. soil. The other 2 are dead. The victims were found in a rural area east of the northern Mexico border city of Matamoros. The other 2 survivors were returned to the U.S. Tuesday. Mexican officials say one of them was injured. Omar Villafranca is in Brownsville, Texas, with the latest.
2 Americans who survived being caught in a shootout and kidnapped by cartel gunmen were taken to a hospital in Brownsville, Texas today. Mexican authorities found Latavia McGee and Eric Williams at a stash house outside the city of Matamoros after gunmen moved them to multiple locations to avoid capture. It was the end of a road trip for cosmetic surgery. McGee, Williams, along with their close friends Shahid Woodard and Zindell Brown, traveled last week from South Carolina to Matamoros so McGee could have cosmetic surgery. This video shows the moment when they were kidnapped at gunpoint after being caught in a shootout between rival cartel gangs. Here you see McGee being forced into the back of a pickup truck by armed men, with others who appear hurt, also dragged and loaded onto the truck bed. Woodard and Brown were killed. Traveling abroad for medicine and medical procedures is common. More than 1 million Americans traveled to Mexico for health tourism last year, spending about $250 million. 38-year-old Williams, a husband and father, was shot in the leg but is expected to survive. We talked to his wife, Michelle, moments ago from North Carolina. She didn't want to show her face, but says she talked to her husband today.
Did he tell you anything about that moment at all?
No, we didn't discuss it because it was to hear his voice. It was just a lot of crying. My son was there, and my son just wanted to hear his voice. And then he had to go because he was going into the hospital.
CBS News has learned that McGee had been to Mexico before for cosmetic surgery. Investigators are blaming the Gulf Cartel for this incident, and Mexican authorities have also announced that a 24-year-old has been arrested in connection with this attack. John?
Omar, is there any word on the recovery of the deceased victims and bringing them back to the United States?
That's going to be a government process. We're trying to figure out exactly the timetable for it, but when there's deceased in one country, moving it back to the U.S., and obviously there's going to be some machinations involved, that will take some time, but we're expecting it to be soon.
And how are people reacting to this incident on the U.S. side of the border?
Well, some of them aren't really surprised. As a matter of fact, we had a pastor tell us that there are kidnappings, hundreds of kidnappings on the Mexican side all the time, but they're usually Mexican nationals, and it doesn't get the attention of the American media. So it's one of those things where they're aware that it happens, but the people here in Brownsville who cross over into Matamoros, many do it daily. They either work over there or they go eat over there and shop daily. They're not worried about what happened there.
Omar Villafranca in Brownsville, Texas. Thank you, Omar.
I know you've been going through some things. I know you don't even love the same. Do you? Do you? I know you've been running on empty, running on empty. The way you move is like you could use a vacation. Drink in your hand and the heart of your dance. I swear right now look like you on a vacation. Gotta get away, make it happen. Whatever happened just had to happen. On vacation, yeah. I know you've been dancing, dancing, dancing like you fucking got a reason. Dancing like it's something to believe in. Dancing like it's fucking dancing season. Blame it on the alcohol or blame it on sativa. The harder your heart to keep beating. Only feel bad while you thinking. Pop, pop, pop like PepsiCo. The best we smoke plus that 10. Look like you flew in from Mexico. Go, go, let me see how wild it get. But so why does it get? You need to be taken care of and pampered. But just like a pamper, he on that childish shit. Yeah, I know you've been silencing your phone. I know you've been trying to get along. What's up? It's on. No games. We grown. I know you feel like sometimes that y'all don't speak the same.
What's going on, guys? So, as you may have noticed, I took a 30-second pause before beginning this commentary. And the reason this time was very simple. Because I wanted this image to sink into your psyche and for you to really internalize this as a black man. Whether or not, you're a frequent traveler, whether or not you're a passport for pussy dude, okay? Whether or not you've even left the state that you live in, okay? I want this image to sink in. Because for me, this image is so powerful. And what it represents is so tragically ironic. that I almost contemplated changing my avatar from the Negro bed wench that I verbally annihilated so many years ago. And most of that was before you guys, before most of you guys' time, to this picture. Now, in case you've been living under a rock, you're well aware that the news media decided to highlight the killings and kidnappings of 4 Americans. Well, actually 2 Americans, and the carting off of the bodies of 2 other Americans that were later identified as black folks from South Carolina who had crossed over into Matamoros, Mexico, or something like that, a town of over 500,000 people, from Brownsville, Texas, so that the only female in the group could have cosmetic surgery. The claims are right now from her family and from the media and from law enforcement is that she went there frequently for cosmetic surgery, and this time she was on her way to get a tummy tuck. And we've heard recently in the news, and we are well aware, that black people frequently travel to South America and Central America, including Mexico, for I think they call it lipotourism. Even one of you brothers was telling me, I think sometime last year, that you traveled to Colombia for dental work. And we also know that there is a segment of Negroes, dumbass niggas, that go to places like Colombia, Brazil, even Mexico for prostitution. And to be fair, you have black people who travel to the Caribbean, South and Central America, just for the sole legit purpose of just regular tourism. But nonetheless, you have more and more now a significant amount of black people, including these hood niggas, that are going down here, going down to these areas south of the border, and leaving the United States after obtaining their passports, which a lot of them, like Monkey Boy Thorpe, seem to make them think that they're somehow special. Now, when you couple that fact with the reality of what is happening in this photo, it really helps you understand not only what happened there on the scene, on that street corner in Mexico, but what is happening across the board with the black diaspora here in North American society as a whole. You have 3 grown black males, at least grown in age, by legal definition, they are grown, lying down in the middle of the street on a sunny day in Mexico after being shot several times. And 2 of these guys are dead. One of them was badly wounded, but survived and was being treated for gunshot wounds. I think I heard 3 gunshot wounds to his leg. But they're lying down in the street next to this rental minivan that they brought from North Carolina, or at least from what I hear, it had North Carolina plates. They brought it across the border, and personally, I didn't even know you could drive with a car with an American plates into Mexico. I didn't know that. But, I've never been to Mexico, and I have no intention of going, so it is what it is. But these Negroes are, down on the ground in the street after, assumably, from what I can see, being dragged out of this minivan. You can see bullet holes through the driver's side window, so I'm assuming one of the Negroes was driving when these Mexican sicarios pulled up and opened fire on the minivan. And I guess the driver must have got hit. I don't know if he was one of the ones that was killed, but he veered into another vehicle, and I don't know if that other vehicle, which also appeared to be some kind of minivan, was where the Mexican woman who was the innocent bystander was also killed, because they said there was a Mexican national that was killed by straight gunfire during this attack, and so a total of 3 people were killed. But after they were dragged after being shot inside the minivan, because the news media reports lied and said that they were all kidnapped from the scene and taken to a stash house where 2 of them were killed. Or, well, I don't know if the media was lying, but there was some misinformation and some confusion with the way they reported it, that 2 of them were later killed and the other 2 survivors were taken to a stash house. No, they were attacked right there on the scene, almost as soon as they got into Matamoros, Mexico. Okay. And 2 of them were killed almost immediately. They were dragged from the vehicle. Okay. You don't have to be a detective to figure this out. You see the bullet holes in the window. Okay. They were dragged from the car after being shot. But the irony of this is that in this picture, you have these guys down on the ground. And yet, sitting right next to them is this heavy-set, overweight black female who appears to be shell-shocked, but unharmed. Not a bullet even grazing her skin. She's sitting up, legs spread apart, like, she don't know what just happened, like she don't know what just hit them. But the fact that these cartel gunmen drove up on the scene and opened fire, yet they managed to hit all 3 of these dark-skinned black dudes, but they didn't shoot her, lets me know something right away. It lets me know that the black males in this case were specifically targeted because they were black males. Okay? If they wanted to shoot her, she would have been shot. They spared her when they attacked the car. They only wanted to fuck up the black dudes. And now you have 3 black dudes. I'm not going to call them brothers, and we'll get to that later on. But you have 3 black males laying in the streets of Mexico, and right beside them is the black American female, which they came to accompany to her fat reduction surgery down in Mexico. And she is unscathed. Now, listen, man, there's so many different ways we can go with this story, let alone this image. Okay? But again, we'll see how things, we'll see how things evolve as I, continue with talking about this today. But just starting off, how many cases have we seen and we heard of black men, black males being murdered and being incarcerated as a direct or indirect consequence of dealing with these whores and hags, or trying to impress these whores and hags. You know, Cynthia G, she has a niche for, you know, talking about how subjugated, how weak, how inferior the black man is to other race groups of men. But what the bitch very vaguely, if ever, seldomly talks about is how the same black males that she claims are inferior to other men are really more inferior and weak and vulnerable to the black bitch than any other man of any tribe on planet Earth. Because you see, it is only the black male. It is only the black male, collectively, and as on large of a scale as we've seen, that would allow himself on a constant basis to not only be led by his tribe of female, but allow himself to be led astray and led into situations that many of which lead to his demise. You know, I recently saw an old news clip of this Pookie that was giving a television interview to a local station in St. Louis. And it was broadcast 24 hours before he was to be executed inside of a Missouri state prison. And I don't know when they did the interview, but this was 5 years ago in 2018. And, you know, his lawyers, they tried over 20 years to get his conviction overturned. They tried to get the death penalty dropped. You know, as you know, it's not as hard for white men who've been accused of crimes where they've been sentenced to capital punishment to get overturned. You know, Lacey Peterson's husband got his death penalty conviction dropped. The Boston bomber, the one that survived Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, the feds threw out his death penalty sentence, you know, and converted it to a life sentence. But for the Negro, unless he is completely exonerated, even if he's proved to be mentally inferior, like his IQ level is not at a certain level, they have no problem with executing these niggas. Okay? And it is very hard for them to get that death penalty thrown out. Well, this guy, he was giving an interview to a reporter and talking about all the positive things that he did, you know, talking to at-risk youth that would visit the prison where he was being held over the years and trying to mentor them so they don't wind up like him, and how he thought that, you know, that would be enough to, you know, have his death penalty conviction overturned. But since it wasn't, he's at peace with it, and, you know, he's at peace with God and all this yada yada yada. Then they got to the story behind why the nigga was there on death row in the first place. And turns out it was a case in 2001 in the St. Louis area where this dumb nigga confronted this Indian store shop owner over an argument that the Indian store shop owner at this liquor store had with his girlfriend, or what he called his girlfriend, the day before, where he basically threw the fucking ghetto gagging hoe out the liquor store because, you know, he caught her trying to steal. And so I guess she went back and told Pookie, and Pookie gonna buck up. He gonna go, you know, confront this man who has every right to refuse service to and throw, whoever out of his store for whatever reason. He gonna go confront this Indian store shop owner on his turf, in his property, to impress her. They got into an argument. Things got heated. Pookie pulled a gun and shot the store owner in the face, killed him. He was arrested a few days later, charged, later convicted, and sentenced to death. And I couldn't help but looking at this dumb Negro in this video, who's long gone now, from 5 years ago, and thinking to myself, the very bitch whose honor, if you want to dare call it that, he was trying to defend, over the course of the 20 plus years that you've been sitting your ignorant black ass in this prison cell, waiting for them to strap you to that fucking table and inject that poison into you and take your life. This bitch has probably long forgotten about your ass. She probably didn't even thank you for standing up for her little ratchet, raggedy, ghetto-gagging slut ass. She's been hopping up and down on the dick of Pookie, probably fucking the Arab at the very fucking liquor store that took ownership from the dude that you killed. How many half-breed and black illegitimate children has she had with other dudes? How many sexual escapades, how many hood party orgies has this hood bitch had since you killed that man trying to defend her stupid ass? She don't give a fuck about you. She won't even be there when you're executed, you dumb nigger. Yet, the black male does not have, it's just like Akwesi said, he lacks critical thinking skills. He lacks critical thinking skills. Because a critically thinking person, okay, would observe a situation where a black female, whether it's a relative, a friend, a fuck buddy, whatever, wants to cross over into a dangerous part of Mexico that even the U.S. State Department issues travel advisories against, like it's somewhere in the fucking Middle East. They're telling you this is not a tourism-friendly place, okay? This ain't Cancun. This ain't fucking Mexico City. And that's dangerous enough, okay? This is a cartel stronghold. Do not go to Matamoros, or however it's pronounced. A critically thinking person would think, okay, we're going down there with a rental car with American plates. We're going to be unarmed, which incidentally is one of the main reasons why, I have not made the move to travel outside of the U.S. yet. That's not saying that I'm never going to, okay? It's just that I've been other than the fact that I'm so busy as an entrepreneur, it's also that, I've really been, because I'm a critically thinking and such a deep thinking person, I've been thinking to myself, all these horror stories that we've heard. And even before that, the kid that got beat to death in Greece, I mean, go down the list, man. If I find myself in some type of a situation where I'm encountering directly or indirectly the criminal element, which is in every country in the world, okay? And I'm going to be completely unarmed. I'm going to be completely defenseless. Unless I know fucking karate or some shit, or I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and that ain't going to do much good up against somebody who has a weapon, which they almost certainly will have one. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? What can I do? Run? Call the police? I don't speak the language. I don't know what. How do you call the police in a lot of these fucking countries? Do they have a 911 equivalent? But you're going into a hot zone. Really, essentially a death zone. This is cartel territory. Okay? Cartel territory. And you have no way to defend yourself. Plus, you're black. So you stick out like a sore fucking thumb. And what's worse, you're black men. And our MasterCard is accepted by and large nowhere. Okay? Let's just keep it a buck. People tolerate us. We're not even accepted by Africans with they backstabbing hypocrite asses. Okay? So what are you going to do if you get in some type of fucking trouble? What are you going to do if somebody walks up on you and robs you, takes your phone and all that shit? You could try to make your way to the embassy if they let you, and don't kidnap you or kill you right there. But oh wait, you don't have a GPS and you don't speak the language. So how the fuck are you going to know the direction to the embassy? Walk up to random people and ask them, hello, how do I get to El Americano Embassio? The fuck are you gonna do? See, Negroes, they don't think about shit. Another thing that Okwesi said that was very forthcoming about the way, it was very revealing about the way the Negro thinks, the way their mind operates. He said, Negroes fail to analyze the world around them. They fail to analyze the world around them. If you have even been halfway watching the news, okay, you know that there are certain parts of Mexico, let alone all them other violent and dangerous and poverty-stricken South American and Central American countries and the Caribbean. You know that there are certain parts of Mexico that are no-goes because the violence, the evil, the death there is just unimaginable. From the shit that I've seen, these cartels and the gangs that contract out to them are even more dangerous than fucking ISIS and Al-Qaeda in their prime. Okay? I've always said I'd be interested to see what happens if you lock fucking ISIS or Al-Qaeda in their prime in a tiny room with these cartel members. That would be an interesting confrontation. That would be they probably all wind up dead, but I don't know. These cartel motherfuckers can stand their own with anybody. Okay? And listen, the shit that I and we've all seen and heard about in Mexico, it makes the south side of Chicago look like the fucking Ritz-Carlton. Okay? It makes the south side of Chicago, it makes Detroit, it makes the 7th Ward of New Orleans look like fucking Alice in fucking Wonderland. Okay? The fucking crystal ball with Cinderella and the Cabbage Patch. Oh, I'm sorry, the pumpkin patch, or the pumpkin that turned into a fucking carriage. Whatever, man. I halfway pay attention to all that white fantasy bullshit, but you get my point. Okay? There are few places on earth, besides maybe Yemen, Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, There are few places on earth, well, I guess now you could say Ukraine, Kosovo back in the day. There are few places on planet Earth that are more violent and evil than certain parts, certain areas of Mexico. Okay? Those people, those motherfuckers, dude, I'll tell you what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to pause this commentary. I'm not going to pause it, but I'm going to take time out to share with you a link. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I may just give you the link to my website because I could get in trouble if I give the direct link. Okay? It is a highly censored video that I put together from shit that I downloaded off of the internet, just so you can see what these narco scumbags do to human beings. Many of them innocent. A lot of the people that these narco terrorists kill, they kill them either for fun, they kill them to send a message of fear into the community that they're trying to, take over, or they kill them because they're family members and or friends of somebody that they have beef with. Not everybody that the cartel kills are people that are on the other side, that are rivals or police or, so-called rats and snitches. A lot of the people that they murder and they violently mutilate and massacre and slaughter, a lot of these are innocent human beings. I've seen shit so terrible, it can't even be described. There was this video where they took this pregnant 19-year-old female, stripped her naked because her boyfriend had killed one of their members and ran off he robbed one of their stash houses, killed one of their members, or so they claim. He killed one of their members and ran off with a significant amount of their supply, and they couldn't find him. So they took his pregnant girlfriend, stripped off her pants, and put a firecracker in her vagina and lit it. And this woman was visibly 7 or 8 months pregnant. And she's sitting up there crying out to God and begging for mercy. And they're laughing and hitting her on the head with the butt of the gun right before the thing goes off. I've seen them literally saw a guy's arms and legs off while he's standing there screaming. These motherfuckers are pure fucking evil. There's some dude, for everything that we talk about with Pookie and Ray Ray, motherfucker, I would almost marry Pookie or Ray Ray if I had a choice between Pookie and these crazy motherfuckers, or these fucking so-called sicarios in fucking Mexico. They are a different level of insane and evil. Okay? And since a lot of you niggas you fail to grasp this, I'm gonna do something for you. Now, needless to say, viewer discretion is strongly advised. Most of you will not be able to watch this. Some of you that have been in the military and have been in war zones, I'm sorry if shit like this brings back, bad memories. That's not my intent, okay? But those of you who have an independent Marlboro Man mindset, you may be able to get through this. But to view it, you are going to have an account. If, BitChute, because, we don't have FS Avenger anymore, at least not now. If BitChute even allows it to stay up, okay? I don't care if it stays up or not. I just want it to be up long enough for you to see this satanic shit. And that's coming from a person that doesn't even believe in angels and demons, the way most people believe in them, at least. But for you to see this shit for yourself, okay? Wait until you see what a human being can do to another human being. and then get back with me about getting your fucking passport and crossing the border. Now, see, here's the funny thing. If this case, which occurred, was just a one-off, just niggas, wrong place, wrong time, just bad luck, it is what it is, sorry to their condolences to the family of the victims that died, but it was just a coincidence that they just so happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. If this was a one-off, okay, we could say, okay, fine. It was just a fluke. They just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it was mistaken identity. But we know it's not a fluke. We know that this is not just a one-off thing, singular, isolated event. We know that very frequently, or more often than it should actually happen, American tourists, and specifically Black American tourists, no matter what their field of endeavor, no matter what their intention for going to these violent, poverty-stricken, underdeveloped third world shitholes, as Donald Trump called them, countries, they have been dying and getting fucked up at rates disproportionate to their white counterparts. Okay? Now, a lot of this, yes, can be contributed to the fact that we are Black people. We are dark-skinned. We're unlike any other group of people, at least, that, were born in this part of the world, the Northern Hemisphere. Okay? We're not Caucasian. We're not Oriental. We're not even talking about mixed breeds. We're talking about people who we are more identifiable by our skin color, especially if we're dark, like to the point of black or dark brown. Okay, we are unmistakably identifiable based on our skin color. So now, yes, a lot of the reason why Negroes are finding themselves in these predicaments more often than other race groups of tourists is because of, them bringing that dysfunction and degenerate mindset to a lot of these places with them, not realizing that there are people that are just as dysfunctional and degenerate as they are. The only difference is now you're on that person's turf, okay? And they're going to remind you that you're on their turf, and as far as they're concerned, you're trespassing. And as a result of that, you got to pay a fare, even if it's your life. If you're lucky, it's your wallet. I also thoroughly believe that a lot of these Negroes are not just being killed and being harmed because they're doing dumb shit. I believe a lot of them are being targeted because they are Black. And this case is a prime example. They claimed because they claimed that they arrested one of the people responsible for the attack on this minivan and these 4 Negroes. They wound up with 2 of them dead. And they claimed he was a lookout that I guess didn't get away fast enough with his buddies that, shot the shit up and then put the remaining survivors and bodies in a pickup truck. And according to Mexican officials, at least, which, you have to take everything the motherfucker says at a grain of salt, but we'll get to that later as well. They claim that this dude said that they attacked the car. They first scouted the car. They started following the car from almost as soon as it entered into Mexico. And they scouted it and attacked it and took these motherfuckers hostage because they assumed, based on the way they look, they were Haitian smugglers. Now, I don't know much about the drug trade. I don't know if Haitians, I know they operate in like Florida and Louisiana, but I don't know if, Haitian smuggling is big in Mexico. I can't imagine that it would be, seeing that the Haitians would be outnumbered and outgunned, and they stick out so obviously because Haitians are some of the darkest skinned Nubian people in the world. But he was claiming that they thought they were Haitian smugglers. Now, whether or not that's true, okay, what this tells me is a couple of things. First thing it tells me is that these cartel motherfuckers have that entire town locked down and under surveillance. They probably have motherfuckers standing at the border, okay, looking at cars and scanning cars and running license plates because, well, I said we're going to get to that later. A lot of these cartel members are former and current military and Mexican law enforcement, but we going to get to that part later. We can't even scratch the surface of that right now. We still on this. But I get a sense that they're watching everybody that comes in and out of that fucking town as much as they can. Okay? They have scouters, they have spies, okay? They probably have cameras, they probably have license plate readers, some of everything. They're watching like a hawk because this is their territory. And they've made up in their minds that they're not going to let any rival or any enemy try to come in and infiltrate or take a piece of their pie. Now, that's the first thing that tells me. Second thing it tells me is that as soon as they saw these black Negroes, okay, and these aren't Dexter types. It might not have mattered anyway if the Negroes that entered, and were attacked looked like, most of us so-called educated lames. It might not have mattered anyway, okay? But these were more, the Monkey Boy Thorpe angry man types, pants sagging, starter cap, the white t-shirt, the $100 Nikes, the dirty dreads, the hood type dudes. Okay? They didn't even bother to try to question these Negroes when they saw them. Like, run them off the road and walk up to them because, these cartels, they have in certain areas, they have as much power, even more power than the police. And that's because a lot of them are police, but again, we'll get to that. We'll get to that later. They didn't even try to pull these dudes off the road and question them like, where you coming from? Why are you here? We're gonna search this van. They didn't even do that. They did not hesitate. Soon as they saw they black asses, oh, those are Haitian smugglers. We're gonna kill them. Now, that could be contributed towards incompetence of, just the organization itself to have, the appropriate intelligence to know who to look out for specifically. Or that could be contributed to the fact that something that a lot of you Negroes have been telling me that, I'm not completely aware of because I don't hang around Mexicans. I don't really hang around anybody because I don't, I'm like David Kell. Half the people in this world I don't like, the other half I don't trust. It is what it is. But what a lot of you Negroes have been telling me, which is that Mexicans don't really like black people. Okay? Now I've had a few of these taco eaters, give me attitude. Okay? But I can't really say it's because I'm black that I've had, one or two confrontations with them over the decades, because I've had probably 10 times that many confrontations from other race groups, particularly my own race group, so it could just be because, they were the ones that I encountered were stupid motherfuckers. Okay. But y'all are the ones telling me that Mexicans, a lot of them don't like black folks. And we're not talking about the Latino Americans that come from Mexico that were born over here, but they're like second generation Americans, or what they, or even what these motherfuckers in the government call dreamers that were actually born over here. We're talking about motherfuckers that are actually over there. They don't like seeing, or they don't like niggers being around. I don't know, to what extent there is a level of closet racism in Mexico against black people. I don't know. Okay? That is something that I would have to do research on. But let's just say for a moment that these cartel motherfuckers, who, make no mistake, they've killed people before. Okay? You don't just jump out and fucking, spray a fucking vehicle like that. Well, now I take that back. They didn't spray the vehicle. I've seen when they spray vehicles, they didn't spray it because they didn't put one round on that fat black bitch. And she was the largest, widest person in the damn vehicle. How could they miss her if they were just spraying? Okay? All them niggas that were killed, they were skinny motherfuckers or slender dudes. Okay? They shot all of them but missed her. So this was a targeted attack. But the reality is, okay, let's just go out on a limb and say that they decided they saw some black motherfuckers coming in. They were in a bad mood and they didn't like these niggas. So they just decided, oh, these are Haitian smugglers. Let's go fuck them up. You really think that those are the first niggas or the first niggas that day that they saw coming into Matamoros? I'm pretty sure plenty of niggas go in and out of that town between there and Brownsville, Texas. They just decided to target these motherfuckers. Why? Is it because they actually thought they were Haitian smugglers? Or is it because they just decided, you know what? We don't like they black asses. One of them looks like fucking Coolio. And the other one looks like an older version of Lil Wayne. So, the hood think it's going to come here to Mexico. We going to show them how we roll in our hood. It could be that they just didn't like the way the motherfuckers look. Would they have done that to a group of, ghetto weave, multicolor weave rats with the fake eyelashes? Not likely. Because they don't see, like most areas, including this white supremacist system that we live in, they don't see the black American bitch as a threat. Not only, and when I say threat, I need y'all to understand something. Okay? I don't just mean a physical threat. I mean a threat to these other tribes of men's ego. Okay? I mean, when you see the number of Negroes just in my area alone, let alone throughout the rest of the United States and the world, that are with, for example, white women. The amount of bed bucking that is going on, I can't even, man. Compared to, I say this, black men have black bitches beat. They have them beat when it comes to this race mix and interracial dating piece. I can't even pretend. I tried to deny it at first, but dude, it's far easier for a black man, from what I've seen, it is far easier for a black man to get a white woman than it is for him to get a black woman. Now, my older self would say, oh, that's just, fake bravado, just black men claiming something that's not true. No. I've seen black men with every level of attraction and age range of white bitch. Okay? From butt ugly to fine. Okay? Most of the time it's somewhere in between. Okay? And the age varies as well. I say out of every 3 couples that I see in my area, 2 of them are black men with white bitches. It is what it is. So I also factor that into trying to analyze what actually happened here. Okay? Was this really a case of mistaken identity? Or were these cartel motherfuckers thinking to themselves, these black dirty dread motherfucking Coolio or Lil Wayne looking Chief Keefer like looking motherfuckers, they think they gonna come into Mexico and fuck our women. Maybe fuck my girlfriend, fuck our senoritas. No, we gonna fix that right here, right now. And since we the cartel, we can get away with it. Was it something like that? I can tell you this. You ain't gonna see black men openly walking around, especially in cartel controlled areas of Mexico, with no fine ass fucking Latina bitch. Okay, in the fucking short booty shorts and the platform high heels and you know, them little short Saritas dress blouses that they be wearing with the long hair and the thick ass bright red lipstick like Selena. That you ain't gonna see. I promise you that, son. I promise you that. The reason why you see it so much over here is not because white men are necessarily, these crackers are okay with black men, you know, fucking their women every chance they get. It's because the greater white supremacist system, and I think Equazi or somebody alluded to this, it understands that this is another tool in its arsenal to ensure that the Negro collective remains an uncompetitive degenerate, that they don't have to ever worry about challenging them on a socioeconomic or military scale in this world. Because allowing the black male to sleep with and court and, you know, date and even marry and have mixed race children with white women stirs confusion about what tribe the black male actually belongs to. I mean, I had dumb niggas just a couple of years ago actually in my comment section, one of them niggas I had to ban, talking about you can go off and start a new black race with non-black women. It's some of the dumbest, most retarded, most irrational shit that I've ever heard in my fucking life. But see, once again, this is what white supremacy wants. They want to stir confusion, and as Heath Ledger's Joker said, chaos. They know that by stirring chaos and creating confusion, including using the black bitch and creating this system that allows her to retain matriarchal rule over what y'all call the black community or black America. This ensures that white supremacy can better control this Negro by controlling the way he thinks. And if he thinks that he actually has power because he can stick his fucking dick in a white bitch, and you have these fucking apes having these 8 and 9 and 10 and 12 gazillion hour live streams arguing over what race of bitch to stick their penis in, and them thinking that somehow, you know, them having allowed to have this option gives them some type of power, when the people with real power are arguing at the fucking G8 summit and emergency meetings with NATO with who can go to war and who can have access to the World Bank and who can have nuclear weapons. Then that ensures that this Negro is completely harmless and not a threat to the greater white supremacist structure. Not just here, but around the world. But you see, in Mexico and parts of South America, where they're still struggling and fighting over resources, including the drug trade. And you know, in fucking Mexico, shit, the fucking narco terrorists, they're even fighting to take over the fucking farming industry. It's not just illegal drugs like cocaine and heroin. I just watched this documentary by Canadian network, I think CBC, where they were talking about the narco wars over the fucking avocado industry. where there are actual running battles and civil wars in rural towns where farmers are trying to, keep these goddamn bastards from taking their cash crop away from them. Okay? There is no incentive for these poorer tribes of people to allow black men to come into their countries and basically do whatever they want to do and act any type of way and screw their women. Okay? Because they're not on top. And so they're not worried about staying at the top of the mountain peak. Okay? So their mindset is not, how do we stir confusion and make, niggas in other tribes believe that they're in control of something or running something when they're actually not. Their mindset is fuck anybody that's not in our group. And if they come here and we don't like them, or we don't like why they're here or what they're doing or the way they're acting, we're going to kill them. See, that's what the other thing when Akwesi said that the Negro fails to analyze the environment and the world around him. This is another thing that Negroes just completely miss the mark on. Okay? These motherfuckers are not just going to let you come into their country and do the dysfunctional, degenerate shit that you do in your own hood. It don't work like that. Niggas down in Colombia bragging, talking about a boatload of hoes and fucking raggedy ass bitches that nigga was showing off in that video that I shared with y'all where I did a commentary on it about that fucking pimp that fled the United States because he had warrants. Y'all remember that? I could have got them bitches off the street on Wabash Avenue in fucking Chicago some goddamn where. Or Stony Island. But see, now Negroes are finding out constantly. I mean, look at the amount of cases. Even cases where Negroes were the unintended target. Like that black female that got shot in the leg. And that was actually in a tourist resort. Remember that? Where there was a female, I did a video about it, I think, last year or the year before last, where she was just, on the beach, I think in Cancun or one of those tourist cities in Mexico along the coastline in the Gulf. And some gunmen rolled up in speedboats on the coastline and they started opening fire on two vendors that were suspected of selling drugs to tourists and just killed them. And she got caught in a straight, she caught a stray round in the leg. You look at the case of all those tourists, mainly black tourists, that were being found dead in their hotel rooms or, just out and about in the Dominican Republic. We've heard case after case after case of Negroes being robbed and shot or drugged in Colombia. There have been a few cases of niggas getting killed in Brazil. And in Mexico, Malcolm X's his grandson was murdered in Mexico City by some motherfuckers that robbed him after they saw him, getting a little bit too flirty with a Mexican woman inside of a bar. And he was dumb enough to, take it outside, as niggas like to say, or, well, as Americans like to say. And somehow I guess he thought, his blackness was toughness. He wasn't even about what his grandfather Malcolm X was about. He was one of these little punk niggas. And I guess somehow he thought he was tough. He believed a little bit too much in that fucking Wakanda warrior bullshit and got his ass stomped into the fucking street pavement. But understand that, Pookie or not, they killed Malcolm X's grandson in fucking Mexico. If they did that to his grandson, they don't give a fuck about you. Lots of you recall, I did a video, I think it was earlier this year or it may have been late last year, about those three niggas that wound up dead in their Airbnb in, I believe it was Mexico City, after going there to celebrate the Day of the Dead. And see, this is what I'm talking about. Niggas going celebrating a fucking holiday, in a holiday that they don't understand, in a country that they don't belong to, in a language that they don't speak, in a culture that they're not a part of. Niggas just want to be a part of the party and do what they see everybody else doing. Now the cool thing is to get your passport and go down to Mexico or Colombia and act a damn fool. And a lot of these niggas are coming back in pine boxes. And I said in that video, I said something does not ring right with me. Because remember, you remember, it was a young black female. She was like a artist, and she owned a business, I think in North Carolina. And she had just bought she had just started leasing a little space, I think in Raleigh or something. And she went down to Mexico City with her two gay male friends. Well, assumably they were gay, because if they wasn't, they'd be trying to fuck. And I think she had like some Latino Afro half-breed as her boyfriend that decided to stay behind. And, you know, they had taken pictures at the Day of the Dead. You know, they were in their costumes and everything. And then they went back to their Airbnb. And the next day they were found dead. I think the female, she called her Latino half-breed boyfriend and told him that she felt sick. She didn't feel well and she was going to lay down. And they found, I think a cleaning person found them in the apartment dead the next day. Now, the official Mexican authorities medical examiner report or claim was that they died of carbon monoxide poisoning. And I think at least one of the families of one of the victims, they wanted to order a independent autopsy. I don't know if they ever did or not. But I said in that video that it was highly suspicious to me that those Negroes died the way the Mexicans claimed that they died. And the reason being was because they were in a high-rise building. This was not an Airbnb that was, you know, just a single house, like or a duplex, like a two-flat, okay? This was a 10 or 15-story high-rise building, like a project, okay? And they were renting an apartment space on one of the upper floors. Now, I don't know much about building maintenance, but I do know this, and I believe the brother of logic and common sense can confirm this. Most high-rise buildings, whether you're talking about, you know, hotels or apartment complexes or even office buildings, they have centralized systems for their plumbing, their water, electricity, and their air conditioning and ventilation. Okay? What this means is that units are not specifically given, you know, individual systems to, you know, run these accommodations. These are systems that are used by every unit, that every unit has to share, from a base system that's usually in one of the lower levels or on the top level with the air conditioning and ventilation. If you ever seen one of those helicopter or drone flyovers of those tall buildings, they have those huge air conditioning units on top of the building. Why? Because that is the centralized AC system that controls and feeds heat and, you know, cool air and just air in, you know, and centralizes, you know, just air in general throughout the building, in every unit, in every office. Okay? So I said, this does not sit right with me. Unless you want me to believe that this is one of those rare high rises that has, you know, specific air conditioning and ventilation systems for each individual unit that are independent of other units, which, would be very hard to do in a high-rise building anyway. But unless you want me to actually believe that, this building was running on, that these niggas died in, was running on a centralized air conditioning and ventilation unit that was shared by all the other units in the building. What that means is, if there was a carbon monoxide leak, like they claim, which killed these niggas, that somehow seeped into the ventilation shaft, other people should have been killed, injured, and otherwise fucked up too. Not just these 3 Negroes. Okay? That does not make logical or scientific sense. A good example of this, for those of you who are old enough to remember, before they rebuilt the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, some of you may recall in 1980, there was a massive fire at the MGM Grand in the casino area in the lower levels that started in the delicatessen because of a cord on a microwave at the bakery in the delicatessen that shorted and caused this huge fire that spread throughout the casino floor on the ground level. And smoke inhalation got into the ventilation shaft of the old MGM Grand, okay? And it killed like 80 or 90 people. Most of them were guests inside the hotel, okay? The smoke, the heavy black thick smoke from the fire on the ground level of the MGM Grand, it got into the ventilation system, into the pipes, okay? And it rose and just turned the entire MGM Grand into a giant chimney stack. When the firefighters put the fire out, okay, and they went into, to try to check on people in their rooms, they found people that didn't have a mark on them. They didn't have any soot around their mouths. Like in the bombing of the World Trade Center, you saw people, they were breathing in all that soot. They had nothing. They didn't have a mark on them, but they were lying beside their beds in their hotel rooms, dead. Okay? Some of them were in their beds, dead. Some of them were in the shower, dead, with the water still on. And they were trying to figure out, well, the fire didn't spread past the first couple of floors on the ground floor. This is like a 20-story building. How did all these people all the way up at the top wind up dead? And it didn't take them long to figure it out. They died because the smoke rose, and even though the black smoke, kind of dissipated in the ventilation system because it was competing with the air that was the clean air that was already circulating, the toxins that were in the black smoke vaporized and went into this centralized ventilation air conditioning system and seeped through vents into these people's hotel room. And you had 80 or 90 people that died from carbon monoxide poisoning. It was one of the deadliest high-rise fires in American history. The point being is this. If there was a carbon monoxide leak in a building that big, unless you want me to believe that everybody else in that building, or most everybody else in that building, was still out celebrating the Day of the Dead, okay? How did only these niggas wind up dead? Okay? Or if they were the only ones that wound up dead, why weren't other people sick to the point where they needed to be carted off to the hospital? Why didn't other people report to, the staff in the lobby? Why didn't they call down to the lobby or security and say, I feel sick, something's going on here? Why wasn't, Mexican emergency services outside of this high rise evacuating the place because so many people were reporting symptoms that were, similar to carbon monoxide poisoning? You want me to believe that it was just a one-off, that this carbon monoxide went through the central ventilation shaft and the pipes in the air conditioning system and just decided to just seep into these one group of niggas' room. I call bullshit. Either they died some other type of way, like taking some type of drug or drinking something that their shit was laced with something that they didn't know. Or if it was carbon monoxide, it was targeted to their room. Okay? There's no way you can have a building with hundreds or thousands of people and something like carbon monoxide leaks in that building and it only affects people in one unit. That's bullshit. Same thing we said in the Dominican Republic. Okay? Those people weren't, just randomly dying. It was too many of them dying at one time in too short a period of time to when the last ones died. They were being targeted. Okay? So that brings us back to this. The reality is that Negroes are very identifiable, especially when they go into countries that are largely homogenous, like South Korea. Or, they don't have this propagandist system of diversity. Okay? You're going to stick out. That does not necessarily mean that your life is going to be in danger in every situation. But it does mean that you need to keep in mind that this is not your territory. Okay? And that means you need to keep your head on a swivel. And quite frankly, there are certain places that you should not go. I shared with some of you brothers not too long ago that I had a situation that I got caught up in and had a pretty close call when I just visited New Mexico last summer for business. And I'm not going to go into detail with that here on the internet, but those who I felt I could trust with that information, I told them. And yes, law enforcement is already well aware. Okay? But I got nearly caught up in something that didn't have anything to do with me. And that wasn't Mexico. That was New Mexico, where I had this close call. It wasn't specifically targeting me, but I was just in the wrong place, wrong time. Okay? And that happened in New Mexico. I recall when and that was my first time in that part of New Mexico, I recalled that I had to go get a new gas cap for my vehicle. And this white guy that was also originally from my area but migrated down to that part of New Mexico, he told me, to watch out for certain areas of New Mexico because they nickname them as a war zone. And I was thinking to myself, yeah, okay, war zone, I'm from Chicago, not really worried about that, but I will keep my eyes open. And I thought I was keeping my eyes open. Well, I was. I guess that's why it didn't get me. But after the close call happened, I was like, shit. I take my own advice, but I should have taken it a little more. Because I didn't know what side of this city I was on. And I didn't know what was really going down here. See, I explained to you niggas before. And this also plays into what happened to these Negroes in Mexico. We have a tendency, because we're visual creatures, there's an excitotoxin, I forget the name of it, that actually excites a certain part of the brain when we experience new things. You have some dumb motherfuckers that use this to cheat on their spouses or to experiment with drugs. They just want to experience new things, no matter how deplorable, or immoral it is. They want to experience new things, even if they have a certain obligation to stay loyal and stay committed to one thing. Why? Because they may not even realize it, but what they're trying to do is, by experiencing that new thing, they're trying to get that toxin, that drug, that natural drug that's released. I believe it's called an excitotoxin or something like that, into the brain to give them that feeling, that excited feeling of, oh, I'm experiencing something new. This is so great. I'm going to celebrate this. Some people are addicted to that. And so a lot of people, they get this exciting feeling when they visit someplace new. And so that's why they do so much traveling. Okay? Now, I explained that when you travel to a place that you're not from, and it's hard as a tourist to remember this, okay? But you need to remember what's happening in that area. And incidentally, this is why they tell, especially American tourists, that you should stay on the lighted path for tourists, the so-called tourist yellow brick road, and not venture off of it. What's happening in that area is new to you, but it is only new to you. The people who live and work there and have been living and working there for years or decades or generations, it's just the same old, same old. It's the same old play on a different day. So if there is a criminal element that is operating there, terrorist groups, cartels, just the individual pickpocket or armed robber in sandals on a motorbike like in Brazil, okay? That shit was happening before you even got there, son. It's going to be happening after you leave, if you leave in one piece and still alive, okay? And if you're unlucky and in the wrong place at the wrong time and you're not paying attention, it could happen to you while you're there, to you. And unfortunately, that appears to be what happened to these Negroes in Matamoros, Mexico. Now, before we leave here, I do have to bring up one other thing that's been on my mind. I'm actually glad because I attempted to do this commentary before, but I was doing it on one of my older phones, and the fucking app that I was using to record it kept cutting out and fucking up. So this is my third attempt, but I'm actually glad that the recording of this commentary was delayed. Reason being is because there has been a new development in the case. And that new development in the case is that the 5 gunmen, cartel gunmen, that were apparently responsible for killing and kidnapping these niggas in Matamoros were bound and left on the street in front of, at the very intersection where this attack occurred, and turned over by their own cartel, by the people that they work for. Now, I want you to internalize that and the images in this collage for a moment, because that is as powerful and as telling as the first image of these niggas laying dead in the streets of Mexico, for several reasons. Number one, let's look at what the Mexican authorities claim. And I told y'all we was going to get back to this. They claim that these Negroes were taken to a stash house in the rural countryside, and they were moved around from one stash house to another to avoid detection, which is a common occurrence with cartels and even terrorist groups in the Middle East, to take people to take victims or some type of contraband to a stash house and move it from one place to the next. But they claim they were taken to a stash house, and then somehow the Mexican authorities located the stash house where the victims were currently at, and they raided it. Yet somehow, strangely, when they raided the stash house, there was no shootout between them and the guards at the stash house. And they were just able to walk into the stash house and know right where these Negroes were and rescue them without any gunfight, without any resistance, without arresting any additional perps. Because remember, They said the only guy that they took was the lookout. They captured him at or near the scene, and he gave them the information. Let's just go out on a limb and say that he even gave them the information as to what stash house these niggas might have been at. And they used that information to find, where these Negroes were at. There was no gunfight. There was nobody to take in custody at that stash house. I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. And I've done this several times before. Sometimes I'm wrong, but most of the times I'm right. The Mexican authorities, quote unquote, a lot of them know these cartel guys. Some of them are in the cartel. They realized first, they thought, well, it's just a couple of niggas. Ain't nobody, we can keep this under wraps. But when the American media started to catch on to this, which then in turn prompted the FBI and the White House to get involved in it, to save face, because of the Biden administration, they don't want to look like they don't care about niggers. Because originally, I think the American media thought this was white people that were killed and kidnapped, because that's actually happened in Mexico before. One of the most horrific, even more than this, one of the most horrific cases that I've ever seen of Americans being murdered in Mexico was a couple of years ago when this pregnant white woman and a couple of other white women that were part of this Mormon family sect, they were accosted and fired upon and slaughtered inside of a van along with their children. These cartel motherfuckers killed 3 women and a bunch of children, including 2 twin babies and a pregnant woman, and then burned their bodies inside the car when they realized that it was a case of mistaken identity and they didn't that it wasn't who they thought it was. So, the media, like I said, man, if they'll do that to white people, I mean, I don't know if they knew they was white when they rolled up on the vehicle, but it is what it is. If they did that to white people, if they did that to crackers, especially women and children, pregnant women and children, I mean, niggas don't stand a chance. Like I said, that place is another level of crazy and fucking pure evil. But there's legitimate reason to believe that the American news media thought that these may have been white folks that were kidnapped initially. Okay? But then once it was found out that they were black, okay, they had to save face. They couldn't pretend like, they didn't care. Even though we know they don't really care. So when the White House and the FBI got involved and that word got back to Mexico, that struck the fear of God into the motherfuckers. And I'm going to explain why in a minute. But let me just get back to this. So the Mexican police, okay, and other authorities, probably in the military, they knew who these guys were. Probably because some of these guys, the term here is moonlight as a security guard or moonlight as some other type of job when you're a police officer. Over there in Mexico, you moonlight as a police officer or a soldier if you're in the cartel. Okay, the cartel activities is the main gig. Okay, I refuse to believe that these motherfucking so-called Mexican authorities did not know exactly who these guys were and what happened from the start. It was only when the American media started to make a big fuss to the point where Biden started making statements on it, the FBI got involved, that they said, okay, this is going to bring too much heat down on us. We got to do something about this. Okay? And yes, the cartel leaders, word probably got sent from the leader of the cartel that said, get rid of these motherfuckers. Okay? On the normal circumstances, these guys that were laid out in the street, they're actually very lucky. Okay? I don't know how lucky they'll be in the long run, but usually, even if you consider yourself just doing your job, in whatever position you hold in the cartel, if you create this level of problem for them, usually they kill you. Okay? But in this case, the cartel felt it would be more beneficial if we just turn them over. which is pretty funny because niggas was chirping at me last year about cooperating with the FBI over that whole Frank James thing. Okay? And motherfuckers was calling me a snitch. Dummies don't even really know what a fucking snitch is. A snitch is somebody that's involved in the criminal activity with the motherfucker that they're telling on. Okay? I was in no way, shape, or form involved with what that crazy motherfucker did. And it's not just me saying that. It's the feds saying that, which is why I'm still here. Okay? You can't hide from these motherfuckers. They investigate everything. They'll know what your damn underwear smells like after a certain point. Okay? But motherfuckers call themselves bagging on me. Yet, the cartel, these violent, dangerous motherfuckers, were so scared of the ramifications of the American media and the American government that they ratted on and they actually snitched on their own guys. They sold their own guys out and turned them over a couple of niggas that got killed. What does that tell you about who's at the top of the food chain in this motherfucking world? Do you know how violent these fucking cartels are? Motherfucker. I honestly think they're worse than ISIS in its prime. Okay? But they are scared of consequences from the American government. And so they ratted out and snitched on their own dudes. As powerful as they are in their own, in their little territory. What does that tell you? These are motherfuckers that fight government, military, and police forces in Mexico all the time. And to be honest, we're talking about, in a lot of cases, not in every case, okay, because you do have straight criminals and thugs over there, but in a lot of cases, you have rogue soldiers, including so-called Mexican Marines, and, law enforcement that work for the cartel. Is basically a good cop versus bad cop type of deal, or a good soldier versus bad soldier type of deal. Okay, these aren't just, not all of them dudes are just Mexican, thugs running around with guns. A lot of these dudes are trained. Some of them are even trained probably at Quantico, here in the United States in Virginia. Okay, and then they go back there, they pretend like, they want to enlist in the military and serve Mexico, and the next thing you know, they're working for the cartel because the cartel makes more money. That's why a lot of them bastards, they wear masks so they can work for the cartel and do the cartel, do the cartel's bidding and dirty work, by night or by day, depending on, where they are that week in the schedule. And then the next day or the next week, they can still have their police job. Go figure. Okay. But all these motherfuckers are connected. Most of them are connected. I won't say all of them. There are some good, well-intentioned police officers and soldiers in Mexico. Okay. But a lot of these motherfuckers are connected. They're corrupt. Okay. They probably knew from the start where these niggas was taken. It wasn't until they felt the heat coming around the motherfucking corner that they pretended to care. Oh, we have rescued the Americans. We have located the stash house where they were at. We used our intelligence and our interrogative techniques to locate the victims. And now we will send them back to their families in America. Our condolences to the victim. They didn't give a fuck about these niggas. That's not to say that they specifically, ordered these Negroes to be targeted. Okay? But the guys that were there on the ground that did the attacking, they realized these motherfuckers are about to bring a hornet's nest down on our fucking head. So they got to go. And we got to get these niggas the fuck up out of here. We don't know whether they Haitian smugglers or not, but they got to get their black asses up out of here. Here, you want them? Here. Not only can you have these Negroes, you can have these dumb fucking essays that did this shit too. They're fired. I guess that's how the cartels fire their members. They fucking bind you and tie you up and leave you on the side of the street. And that's for the ones that they don't kill. Because usually when you leave the cartel, you die. Or you flee so you don't die. Okay? But these motherfuckers are turning the suspects over to Mexican police that are probably involved in the cartel they damn self. That's why you see one of these motherfuckers, if you look very close, one of the dudes in the middle that's sitting outside the black pickup truck, he's looked like he appears to be smiling or laughing like, man, we'll be eating fucking tacos and burritos, by the end of the night, man. It's just a fucking show. They'll probably take them to jail, take a few photos, and within a couple of days, they'll be back out doing cartel shit. That's how, you remember El Chapo when he supposedly escaped? When he supposedly escaped from prison, Mexican prison that first time? He had help. He had outside help. His payroll is so big, okay? He had the fucking warden of that fucking prison on tap, okay? He left when he wanted to. Of course they wasn't looking at the cameras when he disappeared. Of course they gave him a good head start. That's why the Mexicans, people in the Mexican government who would probably corrupt themselves, who actually wanted him gone, that's why they finally turned him over to American law enforcement, because they knew over in the United States, he can't, there's nothing that he can do. He can't bribe anybody. Okay? He doesn't have that type of pull with American law enforcement like he does over there in Mexico. And that contributes to the reason why these cartels did what they did and quickly turned over the suspects and quickly turned over the victims. Because they understand something that you Negroes do not understand. To the point, so much so do they understand this, that they don't want smoke with the United States government and the white supremacist system over here. They don't want that smoke. Vladimir Putin thought he wanted that smoke, but he finding out different. And they ain't doing nothing but fighting a proxy war with him. You think about it. The American government, if you go all the way back to the Revolutionary War, look at the motherfuckers that they've won against. England, at a time when England had the most powerful military, at least infantry, army in the world. They put down the Confederate uprising in the South that had raised an army to succeed, defend their decision to secede the slave states from the rest of the Union. They locked up Al Capone on tax evasion because they couldn't get him on murder or any other charges. They killed Pretty Boy Floyd, put Machine Gun Kelly in prison. They fucking killed John Dillinger. They put down the communist uprising that spilled over from fucking Europe in the early 20th century, led by radicals like Emma Goldman, who, by the way, they deported. They took out, they helped contribute to taking down the Third Reich, Adolf Hitler and the Nazis at the time when Germany had the most powerful military in the world. They made Japan surrender when they dropped dropped the fucking atomic bomb on their ass. They fought the North Koreans to a stalemate, and that's only because General Douglas MacArthur didn't get what he wanted, which was to nuke the entire fucking area, China along with it. They killed Osama bin Laden and dismantled Al-Qaeda. They severely weakened ISIS by taking out a lot of its top-level commanders and leaders and drying up its resources. They captured Saddam Hussein and knocked him off his throne in Iraq. They set in motion the so-called Arab Spring, the brainchild of the CIA, and dethroned Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, and Hosni Mubarak in fucking Egypt. In 1993, one of the most powerful drug kingpins of all time, Pablo Escobar, whose name lives on because of his legendary ruthlessness and how he ran his drug operations in Colombia. It was the CIA that provided the intelligence and the technology to the Colombian government to track and kill him. They not only dismantled the Black Power movements like the Black Panthers in the mid 60s to early 70s with their COINTELPRO operations. They dismantled this nigga's ability to think to the point where Negroes went from going, I'm black and I'm proud, to I can start a new black race with a different race of woman, to thinking that women, these Bertha butt, weave wearing hood hags and whores, are supposed to lead black men by surgically removing the black man as a father and a provider out of the household. They literally turned an entire tribe of people, not just here but abroad as well, into mental fucking midgets. Who the fuck is going to stand up to these motherfuckers? Look what they're doing to the Russian military in Ukraine without directly laying one pinky finger on the motherfuckers. They're providing the fucking Ukraine with fucking technology and next generation weaponry that they're using to make a mockery of the Russian bear. Make a mockery of them. Russians can barely advance an inch without losing 1,000 of their guys. That's the U.S. government doing that shit. So these cartels are well aware that they don't want no smoke with Uncle Sam, with Uncle Cracker. They don't want no smoke with him. All these goofy niggas talking all this shit, acting all tough, talking about don't snitch. Yet 3/4 of these niggas are in prison. If they needed you to snitch on other criminals that are doing dumbass shit, if that was a prerequisite to locking your black ass up, since none of y'all snitch, of course, then why are so many of you niggas locked up? Because this is what the nigga does not understand. Through years upon years upon years of raping, killing, and pillaging, okay, these honkies that originated from the European continent have developed very specific systems of conquer, command, and control. Okay? And so the cartels, as powerful and as violent and as dangerous as they are in Mexico, they know they would be like a fucking ant about to get stomped on by a human being if they try to go toe-to-toe with the government. Now that's not going to happen over no couple of niggers. But they understand what they're up against. And so they backed down immediately and snitched on their own guys. Okay? We're meager content creators and fans of people that just give their opinion on the internet. You're talking about a group that runs a multi-billion-dollar illegal industry, is heavily armed, military trained, in some places better equipped than the honest police and government officials. And they don't want no smoke with the motherfucking feds. They know what's coming. And see, that leads me to try to help you niggas understand something else that a lot of niggas probably don't understand. Now, why would the cartel think that by turning over these shooters and attackers and kidnappers and turning over the victims. There was probably the fucking cartel that called the Mexican police and told them, oh, you can find them, they here at this address, at this location. Okay. Thank you, senor. Why would they do that? What makes them think that that's going to help them save face when everybody already knows how violent and criminal and evil they are? Because the cartel also understands something else. They understand something that a Kwesi said, you niggas do not. Optics. Nobody cares over here, at least. Nobody cares when they're cutting up, innocent women, men, and children over there and shooting people 1,000 fucking times and doing all other manner of evil shit to people, so long as that shit is in Mexico. But see, Americans have this very false perception of security, not only here, but an arrogant obliviousness that we are safe everywhere we go because we're Americans. If that perception is ever threatened, there's always a risk that there could be consequences. It's one thing if it's a single individual that ruins that concept. But if it's something like a terrorist group, an organization that can more easily be targeted, like say ISIS, okay? There's going to be problems for that organization, as ISIS and Al-Qaeda found out. See, think about it. Compare ISIS and these drug cartels like the so-called Gulf Cartel that they claim was responsible for the killing and kidnapping of these niggas. What is the difference? Think about it. Look at these motherfuckers. What is the real difference? I, for one, personally believe that a lot of fucking Persians, at least, maybe not Arabs, but a lot of Persians look like Hispanics. That's just me, my opinion, whatever. They both dress in black and wear stupid masks. They both like taking, photos where they're, holding their weapons and donned in their little black military gear. They both love murdering and hurting people, right? But there's a key difference between the cartels and these extremist groups in the Middle East. The cartels, their root primary goal is to make money and defend the territory on which they make money and to expand that territory to make more money. These groups like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Hamas, their root goal, their main goal is to harm and kill Westerners and those that they perceive as sympathizing with Westerners. They don't have a financial, like end game. Okay? Of course, like, Bin Laden, who was a wealthy Saudi dissident, as you know, he came from a very wealthy family in Saudi Arabia. Okay? Of course, they use money to gather resources and conduct operations and planning and recruit manpower and conceal, their plans and their manpower and their resources. But money for them is an end that justifies the means in their minds. It is not an end goal. Their end goal is death. I die by destroying my enemy. So there is no negotiating. There is no working with, behind the scenes, these type of people. Because they want to kill you. Okay? This is why they are in the situation that they are in, where ISIS and Al-Qaeda have basically been, maybe not wiped off the map, but they are severely weakened. Whereas these drug cartels in Mexico and other parts of Central America like Colombia are allowed to operate by the greater white supremacist system. Don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. If the American government, really, if the Mexican government really wanted to get rid of these motherfuckers, trust and believe it would not be hard. On the street, against a regular uniformed patrol officer or infantryman or civilian, yes, they can hold their own. But against the full might of the CIA and the FBI and just Uncle Sammy boy, they wouldn't stand a chance. They would not, these cartels would not stand a chance. Do you really think some cowboy hat and sunglass wearing AK-47 or AR-15 toting taco eater in a fucking pickup would stand a snowball's chance in hell against the full might of the American military or even the full might of American intelligence? The CIA probably is watching these motherfuckers right now. Okay? A lot of Negroes believe that the CIA flooded black communities with drugs and guns. And whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it don't mean that niggas had to pick up the guns and the fucking drugs and kill each other and poison each other with them. But nonetheless, this is what the Negro believes, okay? And there is some, factors to assume that there is some validity to this. But whether it's true or not, the reality is, okay, these people who are involved in these types of activities, just like the black baby mama welfare queen, these drug cartels serve a purpose for the greater white supremacist system. For number one, they keep law enforcement over here constantly employed, not just tracking them, but tracking those who indirectly make a living off of them. Like, the local corner drug dealer, the drug trafficker, the drug user, those who run and guard the drug stash houses. Okay? Every time illegal drugs or illegal activity related to drugs comes over here, okay, directly or indirectly, some drug dealer or some gang attacking another hood, because, they feel like they're treading too much on their territory and they're trying to expand their operations or vice versa. Police have to be called. They go look for and arrest suspects, mostly black, and they throw their ignorant black and sometimes white asses in jail and then in prison. Rinse, cycle, repeat. Rinse, cycle, repeat. If you shut down the cartels, you shut down most of the drug trade, and you shut down a significant portion of criminality in this motherfucking country and society, which means that police forces would have to cut a significant amount of their personnel. The federal government would have to cut a significant amount of their personnel. Shit, the DEA would almost become defunct. Right? It's a case of one dirty hand washing the other dirty hand. Okay? The cartels and the American government and the Mexican government have an agreement. Well, they've come to an agreement. Not officially, but they have an understanding with each other without, coming to a bargaining table directly to speak with one another. It's like Robert De Niro's character said in Heat when Al Pacino sat down with him and they, at dinner after he pulled him over, and let him know basically, I know who you are, I know what you do. Okay? Why are you doing it? What, you want to go back to prison? And Robert De Niro's character said what he said. He said, hey, I do what I do. I try to take down scores. You do what you do. You try to stop people like me from trying to take down scores. If I didn't exist, if the armed robber, if the criminal didn't exist, the cop wouldn't exist as much. There wouldn't be as much need for the cop. I'm not going to say that the police wouldn't exist because, you know, these motherfuckers in power are always going to have their hired guns, which is all the fucking police and military really are, but that's a subject for another video. So the cartels understand that as ruthless and as brutal as they are to their own people, there's certain lines that they cannot cross, or it cannot be perceived as they are crossing certain lines. The cartels they don't want to be seen as terrorists, even though a lot of people have labeled them as narco-terrorists, okay? It's because specifically white people that run things over here, they don't mind. They've proven this with, you know, the black diaspora. So long as you are murdering and slaughtering your own kind, we'll give a police conference and, you know, the mayor will give a speech and we'll pretend like we care, but we don't really care, okay? And since I personally believe that the media originally perceived these to be white tourists before they found out that they were black, okay? I believe the cartel was worried about the possibility of them being seen and labeled as terrorists. You do not want to be labeled as a terrorist group by these crackers over here. They run things, you know, I'm talking about the old ass wrinkled faced white men in the suit and ties that sit around having boring meetings in, you know, those government office buildings in Washington, D.C. Those fucking senior citizens that run things in Washington, D.C., them old ass crackers, they are some of the most dangerous motherfuckers on planet Earth. Indirectly, okay? They can do everything from call an airstrike on your ass to drop the fucking atom bomb. And the cartels understand this, okay? They want to continue to be seen as cartels. Everybody knows what they do. They don't want to be seen as terrorists or people that target Americans. And also, you also got to consider that would be bad for business. Because then there's a risk that they might really be clamped down on. So don't misunderstand it, man. Don't misunderstand. This country has way too much technology and too many resources for illegal immigrants and drugs to be flooding into this country at the rate that they're flooding in, and the Border Patrol and the DEA and the FBI only catching a small portion of it. That is bullshit. Once again, going back to what I said about there being a mutual understanding and even a mutual respect between the American government and these cartels, this is something by and large that is being allowed to happen. Because criminality, no matter what level of endeavor you're talking about, it serves a common purpose. Just like the dysfunctional black bitch serves a common purpose. One dirty hand washes the other dirty hand. Okay? And so long as these motherfuckers in power are somewhat benefiting, if by no other reason, by maintaining control of the environment, the cartels will be allowed to operate in Mexico, in Colombia, in the Caribbean, and elsewhere. Look at what the American government is doing to Russia without laying a pinky finger on the motherfuckers. How could small Ukraine with no navy and no air force have already killed or captured more than 150,000 150,000 Russian troops in only a year of fighting? Because the United States is equipping them with intelligence, technology, and weaponry, next generation weaponry. And this is small stuff. This isn't the full might of the American military. I don't like the U.S. Armed Forces any more than I like the U.S. government, but even I recognize it's one of the most powerful, it is the most powerful entity as far as mankind is concerned on planet Earth. These motherfuckers got over 1,000 bases on almost on every continent except Antarctica, and they might even have a secret one there. And in half the countries in the fucking world. You can't fuck with them. You think cartels would stand a snowball's chance in hell? Shit. The U.S. government ain't even gotta fucking touch them militarily. The U.S. government can just dry them up socioeconomically. Place sanctions against them. They playing woo-boo the fool like they're fighting a drug war when they're not. It's all for show. Okay? It's all for show. Just like COVID-19 and the scamdemic bullshit was all for fucking show. It was a social fucking experiment, and nobody can convince me that it wasn't. Things like heart disease and cancer kill several times more motherfuckers than COVID-19 could even dream of killing. And that's a fact, not an opinion. Yet all of a sudden, I'm supposed to be so scared of this fucking virus that just came on the scene that doesn't even kill 2% of the motherfuckers that it infects. Get the fuck out of here. A lot of this shit is for show. It's because the people in power understand controlling the optics of what people see and hear, like Harry Houdini. What the eyes see and the ears hear, the mind believes. They want you to believe that they're cracking down on the cartels. Yeah, they'll snatch a couple of them to think, like El Chapo or, the Ariano Felix cartel back in the day, or the, or Pablo Escobar, when they think, they can rise above the station and they think, they're more powerful than, their handlers or those who allow them to operate. When they getting a little bit too uppity, when they getting a little too bougie, as niggas say, then yeah, the government will clamp down on them, put their foot on them and squash them. But for the most part, these cartels are being allowed to operate, dude. So my point is, they don't want to mess that up. That's why they snitched on their own guys. And that's why they turn those Negroes over with the quickness. The cartel probably called the motherfucking FBI they self. They don't want no smoke with these crackers. Because they understand power. Not only do they understand power, which is why they're so ruthless and evil and cruel, but they understand that there are different levels of power. Something that most average Monkey Boy Thorpe type niggas will never understand. Because they don't have the mental brain fucking capacity to do so. The biggest mistake that you can make in this world, and see, if you're a critically thinking person with an IQ level past a certain point, you're not going to have any problem with this. But the biggest mistake that you can make is thinking that everything in this world happens in a vacuum. It doesn't. A lot of this shit is plotted, planned, and designed. Okay? The drug cartels are really no different than the extremist groups like ISIS or Al-Qaeda or Hezbollah or Hamas or Islamic Jihad or the Irish Republican Army. The difference is, the only difference, the main difference, I'll put it like that, other than the culture that they come and the race that they come from, is what their goals are. If your goal is to just kill these honkies over here, I mean, this motherfucker has centuries of experience since Rome in warfare. And nowadays, with the technology that they have, they done wiped out all of the Al-Qaeda former original top leadership, including that al-Zawahiri motherfucker. Okay? And they can shut you down socioeconomically. You don't stand a chance against these motherfuckers unless you have a nuclear bomb. And then it's a suicide mission, because if you get them, they're going to get you 10 times worse. Okay? if you want to kill these motherfuckers, you ain't got nothing for them. You don't have anything to benefit them. You can't negotiate. Y'all can't come to a mutual understanding. They're just going to kill you back and harder. But even if you're the criminal element, like these motherfuckers in these libtard ran shitholes like Chicago, okay, that are let out of jail and prison early so they can go back out on the street and, you know, wreak the same havoc as they were wreaking before. Repeat offenders, I think the term is. If you have something, if there's a mutual understanding, even if you don't have the level of intelligence to understand what is really going on, if you got something for the white supremacist structure that it can benefit from, if by no other reason, by no other way, by helping it cause and maintain confusion and control of society, it will allow you to a certain extent to operate within those borders. But you fuck up and you get too bougie, you get too uppity and think, you know, somehow you don't have to answer to, or you're better than your handlers. You wind up like El Chapo, or, you know, that motherfucker, what's his name, in Colombia, Pablo Escobar. I'm sure, look, man, the fucking CIA knew about Al-Qaeda from the early 90s, from the first bombing of the World Trade Center, okay? They knew a lot of those hijackers were connected to Al-Qaeda when they came over here. I think the mistake that the American government made at first was thinking that, well, they did bomb our embassy and, you know, they put a hole in a naval destroyer. But maybe they're just trying to get our attention. Maybe they want something, you know, maybe we can come to a mutual understanding, you know, where, you know, they can benefit from whatever they want from us and we can benefit more. I mean, we did equip these motherfuckers in the Afghan-Soviet war, just like we did Saddam against the Iranians with that mustard gas. You know, maybe they want something, you know, maybe we can start washing dirty hands together. It wasn't until September 11th when they realized, no, Al-Qaeda only want one thing, baby, and that's for your white ass to die. When that happened, that was when the Central Intelligence Agency, the FBI, and the American government said, okay, these motherfuckers, we're going to have to treat them like we did the Japanese. They got to be wiped out. Because there's no, you know, they only want one thing from us, and that's blood. So then we got to show them what we do best, what we've been doing best for centuries. So, you know, it is what it is. I wouldn't be surprised if the American government directly tried to contact Al-Qaeda after that first major attack in Kenya and Tanzania, where they tried to set up a direct line of communication with bin Laden to see what he wanted. They could have went after him anytime they wanted to in the 90s. They chose not to. Okay? They chose to watch him and hang back for a reason, because they thought maybe this is just another, you know, dirtball motherfucker. Since we dirtballs, you know, maybe we can clean each other's dirt and, you know, get a little benefit from it. But after September 11th, it was clear cut what them motherfuckers want. Okay, same thing with these cartels. So long as they're killing and murdering women and children in Mexico, and the occasional American or Westerner gets caught up in that mess, and it does not look like they're specifically targeting Americans for murder and kidnapping, they will be allowed to continue to operate. They know not to cross certain lines. Motherfucker, the American president, this fucking senior citizen, needs to be in a nursing home somewhere. Bin Laden, or, oh Lord, that was a Freudian slip. My bad. President Biden, he had somebody call Russia, nigga, in the middle of a fucking war. In the middle of a war where Russia is lobbing all their old Soviet artillery into Kiev and the other major cities in the Ukraine. had them call them and tell Putin, oh, hey, Putin, tell your military to stop shelling because the president is about to go to Kiev, Ukraine, and meet with Vladimir Zelensky. And we're going to be there for a few hours, so you got to stop this shit. And Putin was like, okay. They knew. I bet them motherfucking artillery commanders were at gunpoint. Don't you dare fire anything. Don't even fire a fucking AK-47 round in the direction of Kiev. It might go stray. They stopped what they were doing that day and let the president go into a war zone in Kiev and leave out alive. That's how scared even Russia is of these motherfuckers. So y'all need to understand the situation. The brutal irony in all of this, and I'll conclude with this, is that those two niggas are dead because they failed to analyze the world around them and the environment that they were going into. And those cartel members snitched on their own guys and turned over what remained of the victims because they fully analyzed and understood the world around them and the environment that they're in and how quickly that environment could change if they're perceived as fucking with the wrong one. Because, as I've said, historically, as violent as those cartels are, no motherfucker on earth has been more savage than this pale-faced cracker. And everybody knows that shit. And you do best to heed that as well. So y'all keep on going over to Mexico and down to Central America if you want. I'll be right here, sitting back with my popcorn, waiting on the next incident so I can make a video about it. Thanks so much for listening, guys. Over and out. Viva las Mexico!
Know that you've been sacrificing your time and need time to unwind and let go. So let go and let's go and let's roll and we roll.
Excited, activated, get ignited. So many charges on my card, oh God, I think I got indicted.